You don't know why you clicked this video, but something in you remembers. Not the title, not the thumbnail, not even the words you're hearing right now. No, it remembers the feeling that somewhere behind your eyes, something true has always been waiting. Because haven't you always felt it? That quiet sense that reality isn't quite as solid as it pretends to be. That time slips when no one's watching. That your thoughts might not be your own. That everything you've ever called real might just be a beautifully convincing dream. You felt it when the room goes silent. When the voice in your head pauses and something else stirs. A memory with no origin. A knowing you never learned. A whisper that says you've seen this before. You just weren't ready. Until now. Tonight, you don't need to believe anything. You only need to feel it. Because these aren't answers, they're doorways. And each one opens gently, inward. So breathe slowly now. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders fall. Feel your eyelids grow heavier. Let your breath become soundless. This isn't science class. It's not a lecture. It's a remembrance. A sacred unfolding of the truths that live beneath the truths. If you feel something stir, some ache, some awe, some ancient echo, you're not alone. And if you'd like to wander deeper with us, you're gently invited to subscribe. Or simply, stay. Now, let the lights fade. Let the room melt away. And step quietly into the first strange truth, the one that proves you have never once lived in the present moment. Section 1. You are never experiencing the present moment. The present is a ghost you're always chasing, but never holding. You blink, and by the time your brain notices the blink, it's already over. By the time you feel the warmth of sunlight, it has already shifted. By the time you say, I feel this, your body, your nerves have already felt it and moved on. Strange. Isn't it you live your entire life thinking you are here present, alert, grounded in the now? But the truth is, you are always just a little too late. You are not living in the moment. You are living in the echo of the moment. And that echo, just a few milliseconds long, is what your mind has mistaken for reality. Let's pause. Let's slow this down. Because what we're talking about is not poetry, not metaphor, not a spiritual idea. This is science, and it is one of the strangest, quietest truths about being human. Your brain is not a mirror. It is a predictor, a delay buffer, a master illusionist. In 2011, neuroscientist David Eagleman conducted experiments that revealed this ghost delay. In his work Incognito and studies published in Nature Neuroscience, he explained that what you call now is really a reconstructed image patched together and served late. There's a lag of about 80 milliseconds between when something happens and when you become aware of it. That might sound small. It might sound meaningless, but it's the difference between a lightning flash and your recognition of light. Between someone touching your hand and your awareness that you've been touched. It's not just a delay, it's a veil. Your brain collects sensations, sight, sound, touch, waits just long enough to gather a coherent story, and then feeds it to you like a rerun pretending to be live. Why? Because real reality is too fast, too fragmented, too dangerous to navigate in raw form. So the brain smooths the chaos. It buffers reality like a live TV stream, a few frames behind. So you don't see the blur, you only see the illusion of clarity. But what does this mean? It means that the present moment is always just out of reach. It means the now, the true. Raw now is something you never actually touch. You're always watching it fade, like starlight, like a child's breath on glass, like a door closing quietly behind you. As you reach out your hand, just a little too late, it gets stranger, because the brain doesn't just delay time, it edits it, fills in gaps, and sometimes it changes the order. In one experiment, participants saw two lights flash. One was delayed by just a few milliseconds, and yet, people reported seeing them flash simultaneously. Why? Because their brain waited, paused, and rearranged reality to make it look clean. You are not experiencing reality. You are experiencing the brain's best guess of what reality might have been. A blink ago, imagine watching a live concert, except what you're seeing is a replay, except you don't know it. You swear you're seeing it in real time. You even feel it. You believe it. But you're chasing the beat always one step behind the note. Always after the drum has already struck. Now breathe. Let that settle in. If this is true, and it is, then what is the present? Is it gone before it even arrives? Is the present moment something real? Or just something we invented? Because the alternative is too unsettling. In meditation traditions, Zen, Vipassana, Sufi stillness, there's an ancient instruction. Observe the moment as it dies, not as it is, not as it lives, but as it slips away as a memory you didn't know you were making. Science seems to agree. You live in the past, not by choice, but by design, because to be truly present would be to see the world raw, unfiltered, untimed. It would be madness. It would be chaos. So your brain, your quiet protector, wraps reality in a moment of silence, like handing you a cup of warm tea, just after the heat has peaked, so you won't burn. But even now, knowing this, you still feel present. You still feel here. You feel like this moment is real. Isn't that beautiful? The illusion is so perfect that even once you see the trick, you believe in the magic anyway. Maybe that's what it means to be human. To live just far enough behind reality to stay safe, but close enough to fall in love with it anyway. Section 2. Most of what you see isn't actually there. You don't open your eyes to reality. You project it. Close your eyes for a moment, and now open them again. Everything you're seeing, this room, this light, the shape of the screen, the shadows on the walls, the colors of your hands, you think you're receiving all of it. But what if you're not? What if you're generating it moment by moment, pixel by pixel, like a quiet painter working in the dark and pretending you're looking through a window? You've been taught to trust your eyes, to say, "I'll believe it when I see it," to assume that what's out there is directly fed into your mind like a camera. But your brain doesn't work like a camera. It works like a storyteller. It doesn't transmit. It interprets. It fills in the blanks. And most of the time you don't even realize what's missing. In one of the most hauntingly beautiful books on perception, cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman asked a radical question: does the world really look the way we see it? And his answer was quietly devastating. Almost certainly, no. Hoffman, a professor at UC Irvine, spent decades studying how the brain processes sight. He came to a strange, thrilling conclusion. Your visual experience is not a representation of reality. It is a user interface. Just like the icons on your phone don't show you the actual code beneath the surface. Your visual world doesn't show you reality. It shows you a convenient fiction. Imagine this. You click on a blue folder icon on your laptop, but that icon isn't a literal folder. It's a shortcut, a symbol that allows you to interact with something far more complex and invisible. Now take that idea and apply it to everything you see. The trees, the people, the objects you touch, the sky at night, even your own face in the mirror. They are icons, not realities, not the thing in itself. Just a shaped representation, a useful simplification for your survival. But it goes even deeper. Because your eyes can't take in full detail, your retina has blind spots. Your visual field is blurry in the periphery. Your brain receives fragmented light and has to guess what it's seeing. So it does what it's always done. It makes it up. It fills in edges that aren't there. It creates color where there is none. It invents motion, depth, shadow, all so you can walk across the room without falling into existential panic. Here's an example. You're reading this sentence right now. You feel like you're seeing every word clearly, but your eyes are only sharply focused on the word you're looking directly at. Everything else is being interpolated, filled in, guessed, smoothed over. Your brain is telling you, don't worry, I've got this, even when it doesn't. In psychology, this is called predictive coding. The brain doesn't just wait for visual input, it actively predicts what's out there. It anticipates shapes, colors, angles, then overlays those expectations on reality. You are seeing what your brain expects to see. In a way, you're hallucinating with permission. Here's the strange part. This isn't a glitch. It's a feature, because evolution doesn't care about truth. It cares about survival. It doesn't give you the real world. It gives you the world you need to stay alive, find food, recognize threats, and fall in love. And sometimes that means seeing things that aren't there or not seeing things that are. Think about optical illusions. The dress that half the world saw as white and gold, the other half as blue and black. It wasn't a social media trick. It was your brain's perceptual filter struggling to guess the lighting conditions. There was no correct answer, just interpretations built from shadows, memory, and context. Or consider the blind spot in each eye. Right now in your field of vision, there's a literal hole where your optic nerve connects. No rods, no cones, no signal. And yet, you don't see it. Because your brain fills it in with color and shape from the surrounding area. So perfectly that the lie becomes invisible. So what is real? Are you seeing reality? Or are you seeing a gentle hallucination your brain assembled to keep you from screaming? Donald Hoffman's research leads to a stunning, unsettling truth. Perception evolved to hide the truth, not reveal it. The red of an apple is not red. It's a wavelength your brain interpreted as useful, desirable, and nutritious. The edges of a chair, not hard lines, just gradients of contrast turned into symbols of sit here by millions of years of neural evolution. In the end, what you see isn't what is. It's what your brain wants you to believe. It's a curtain of light, projected onto your inner stage, played just convincingly enough to let you live, laugh, and wonder without breaking the fourth wall. Now close your eyes again. And remember, darkness is no less real than light. You see not because of what is out there, but because of what your mind is willing to accept. You are not looking at the world. You are looking at a story your brain tells you every waking second, and somehow you believe it. Even when you know better. Section 3. Your memory is a creative act, not a storage file. You don't remember the past. You recreate it. You think you remember. You think your memories are little glass jars. stacked carefully on some dusty shelf inside your mind, each one holding a sealed truth, a moment, a fact, something sacred and untouched. But that's not how remembering works. Your memory isn't a library. It's a painting, a living, breathing mural that changes subtly, invisibly every time you look at it. Here's the strange truth: every time you remember something, you're not just retrieving it, you're rewriting it. You are editing the past with the brush of the present. You are blending emotion with assumption, filling in gaps with guesses, coloring shadows with stories that were never there to begin with. This isn't poetry. This is how your brain works. In the 1970s, psychologist Dr. Elizabeth Loftus began a series of experiments that shook the entire field of memory research. She discovered that memories are not fixed. They're not stored like files in a cabinet. They're more like fragile impressions susceptible to influence, suggestion, even mood. You remember what happened, but more importantly, you remember how it felt to remember it. In one of her most famous studies, participants watched a video of a car crash. Afterward, some were asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? Others were asked, how fast were they going when they bumped? Just that one word, smashed, caused people to remember the cars moving faster, caused them to recall broken glass that never existed. Just a word, and the memory was reshaped, not because they were lying, not because they forgot, but because the brain paints memory with suggestion as if it were still wet on the canvas. Now think about your life, the childhood memory that comforts you, the heartbreak you replay when the night is quiet, the last words someone ever said to you. Are they real? Are they exactly what happened? Or have they changed just a little each time you pulled them close? Have your feelings seeped into the corners? Have your regrets blurred the lines? Have your wishes edited the truth? Modern neuroscience confirms this. A 2012 review in PubMed Central outlined how retrieving a memory reactivates its neural network, making it temporarily unstable like soft clay before it's stored again. That process is called reconsolidation, and it means that remembering is an act of rewriting. And what's more, the new version replaces the old, not side by side, not marked as updated, but erased and replaced without you ever noticing. So maybe the question isn't what really happened. Maybe the question is, what story did your mind need to tell? Because memory isn't loyal to truth. It's loyal to meaning. It doesn't preserve the past. It protects the self. It heals what it must. It reshapes what hurts. It keeps what helps you survive, and lets the rest dissolve into something softer. This is why two people can live the same moment and remember it completely differently. Not because one is wrong, but because each brain is composing its own music. Imagine it like this. Memory is not a photo album. It's a dream journal you rewrite every night without realizing. Some details fade, some sharpen, some disappear altogether. And what remains is what matters to you. Not what happened, but what it meant, or what you needed it to mean. This is not a flaw. This is your brain's way of protecting you. People who remember everything, like those with highly superior autobiographical memory, often suffer under the weight. They can't let go. Their grief never fades. Their guilt never dulls. Because forgetting or gently reshaping the edges is part of how we survive being human. So now, take a moment. Think of a memory you've always carried. One that shaped you, that clings to your ribs at night. One that hurts or heals. Can you feel it changing? Even now. Softening, becoming a little more yours and a little less historical. That is not weakness. That is the mind's quiet gift to take what once was and turn it into something you can live with. And maybe that's what remembering really is. Not the act of going back, but the ritual of bringing it forward and letting it live in the body you've become. You don't remember facts. You remember feelings. You remember significance. You remember the shape of silence and the warmth of a hand you can't describe and the sound of a goodbye you might have imagined, but needed anyway. So no, your memory isn't perfect, but maybe that's what makes it sacred, because what you carry with you isn't just what happened. It's the meaning you made from it, the story your heart was brave enough to tell. And in that way, your memory isn't a flaw. It's your art. Section 4. Time moves differently in dreams and no one knows why. You've lived entire lifetimes in a single blink, haven't you? There's a dream you still remember. Maybe from last week, maybe from childhood, or maybe it hasn't happened yet. In that dream, you were gone for hours, maybe days. You walked a city that didn't exist, spoke a language you've never heard, felt the sun rise and fall more than once, lived, lost, longed, and then you woke up and only 10 minutes had passed. How does time bend like that? Why does it fracture when your eyes are closed? And here's the strange, quiet answer no one knows. Sleep scientists have tried. They've measured, recorded, theorized at the Harvard Sleep Lab, at labs in Germany, the Netherlands, and Japan. Dozens of researchers have observed that time does not behave normally in dreams. And not just subjectively, not just it feels long. Objectively, strangely, mathematically impossible. People have described dreaming of entire years during a 20-minute nap. Others report multi-scene dreams with changes in setting, emotion, and age all in the space of 5 minutes. It's not just your perception that's altered. It's the experience itself. Time inside a dream doesn't obey the clock on your wall. It doesn't move linearly. It folds, stretches, collapses. Sometimes it loops. Sometimes it evaporates. A 2004 study in the Journal of Sleep Research showed that lucid dreamers, people trained to become aware during dreams, were able to signal researchers from within the dream by moving their eyes in patterns. When asked to count to 10 inside the dream and signal again, the results were inconsistent. Sometimes it took 10 real seconds. Other times, it took twice as long or half. Dream time isn't fixed. It's elastic. It responds to emotion, setting, desire. It can compress a memory or stretch a heartbeat into something that feels like a year. Why? No one can say for sure. But there are clues. And the clues are beautiful. In waking life, your brain processes time using patterns, light shifts, circadian rhythms, heartbeat, breath, motion, memory. But in dreams, those anchors are gone. There's no sunlight, no clocks, no body to track your heartbeat, no feedback from muscles or the environment. So your brain improvises. It creates internal time. A time made of thought and narrative instead of physics. And that kind of time isn't time at all. It's story. Have you noticed in dreams, meaning replaces sequence? You know you were in one room, and now you're in another, but you don't care how you got there. You know someone is your mother, even if she looks nothing like her. The logic bends to emotion, and so does time. In waking life, we move through time, but in dreams, time moves through us. You don't walk forward, you shift. You feel something and the setting changes. The people change. The hour changes. Dreams obey a different law, emotional gravity, where time follows weight, not sequence. It's not so different from art. A poem doesn't move in straight lines. A song can make 3 minutes feel eternal. A memory can collapse a decade into one glance. Dreams are just that, a form of living art, painted by the unconscious mind on the blank canvas of sleep. And here's what might be the strangest part: we've known this for thousands of years. Ancient Egyptian texts spoke of dreams where gods taught lessons in timeless space. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes a dreamlike bardo realm where souls live lifetimes between moments. Sufi mystics called dreams the mirror between the world and the soul. Even the Bible holds dream sequences that carry the weight of years in a single night's rest. Science has tried to model it. Some theorists believe that in REM sleep, the default mode network of the brain, the part responsible for self-awareness and daydreaming, becomes decoupled from linear timekeeping. Others suggest that dopamine surges during dreams create a sense of novelty that slows down your internal clock. But none of it explains it. Not fully, not spiritually, not emotionally. Because this mystery, this gentle fracture of time, feels like more than brainwaves. It feels like a message. Maybe dreams aren't just stories. Maybe they are simulations. Maybe they're training grounds for time itself, for memory, for death, for rebirth. Or maybe, and this is the quietest theory, dreams are the only place we remember what time really is. Not a ticking clock, but a living, shifting awareness, a spiral, a breath, a rhythm, a feeling. So now, as you drift further, notice how long this moment feels, how soft time becomes. When no one is counting, you are no longer tethered to the minute. You are no longer bound to the hour. You are free to live an entire life before the next breath comes. And even if you forget the dream, some part of you will remember the way time curled around your heart, like a ribbon, like a wave, like a hand saying, "It's okay. You have all the time in the world." Even here, Section 5, your brain starts making decisions. Before you do, what if the one who chooses is not the one who speaks? You stand in front of the fridge. You hesitate. Do you reach for the water or the juice? You pause, your face blank, your mind neutral, and then you choose juice. You feel yourself decide. But here's the strange thing. Your brain already knew, even before you did, even before you felt the decision happening. In 1983, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted an experiment that quietly shattered the idea of free will, not with philosophy, but with electrodes. Participants were asked to perform a simple task: flex their wrist whenever they felt the urge. No prompt, no countdown, just whenever they felt like it. They watched a special clock and reported the moment they felt the conscious urge to move. Meanwhile, EEG machines recorded brain activity in real time. Here's what Libet found. On average, the brain showed activity 350 milliseconds before the participant reported making the decision. In other words, the brain had already decided to move before the person was consciously aware. This wasn't just noise. It was a specific pattern of electrical buildup called the readiness potential, a wave of preparation that began before the self entered the scene. You thought you made the choice, but the choice was already underway. You're not the commander, you're the narrator, the witness of a decision that has already bloomed beneath the surface. It's unsettling, isn't it? The idea that you're not at the center of control, That the you who speaks, thinks, chooses might not be the originator, but the storyteller who arrives afterward. In fact, this pattern was first noticed in the 1960s by German scientists Kornhuber and Déjà, long before Liebet made it famous. They, too, saw that motor actions were prepared by the brain before a subject felt they were acting. They called it the Bereitschaftspotential, the readiness potential, a kind of whisper in the neurons before the voice of I arrives. But if you're not choosing, who is? Some scientists argue that the brain is simply pre-processing decisions, and that consciousness steps in to approve or veto them, a kind of last-minute editor. Others say free will is an illusion altogether, that consciousness is a story your brain tells itself to create the illusion of unity, that you are less a captain and more a hallucinated narrator, weaving coherence after the fact. At Stanford, researchers extended Liebet's findings by scanning the brain while participants made complex decisions like whether to press a button or watch a screen. Astonishingly, brain scans could predict their decision up to 7 seconds before the subject reported making it. 7 seconds. Long enough to say a sentence, to walk across a room, to change your life. And yet, you weren't you yet. Not in the way you think. So here's the deeper question. If your brain acts before you do, who are you? Are you the thought, the voice, the echo? Or are you the one who watches all of it unfold from somewhere just behind the eyes? Maybe the self is not a single mind, but a layered parliament of unconscious habits, biological instincts, childhood imprints, and emotional fragments that speak in one voice, pretending to be whole. But before we drift too far into doubt, pause here. This isn't a cause for despair. It's a doorway, a soft unraveling of the myth that you are the center of the storm. Because maybe you're something quieter, something more ancient than decision. Maybe you are the one who notices the presence beneath the waves of thought, the sky behind the cloud of action. Imagine this. You sit in a boat on a river. The river flows. You don't push it. You don't stop it. But you learn to feel its currents, to steer, to choose where to look, to soften when the rapids come. Your brain is the river. You are the witness on the boat. Not separate, but not in control. A participant, a listener, a poet taking notes as the water carries you forward. And maybe that's what real freedom is. Not the power to control every thought, but the awareness to observe without judgment, to recognize when old patterns speak, to notice when the river turns, to say quietly, "Ah, I see you." And in that seeing, something new becomes possible. Because even if your brain fires first, you are the one who feels it. You are the one who breathes and decides, in some subtle way, how to respond to what arises. Not a master, but not a prisoner either. A kind of sacred witness, not of what should be, but of what is. And that witnessing is not small. It might be the only real thing you have. So the next time you make a decision, pause. Feel the breath before the thought. Feel the stir before the voice. And then ask, softly, who moved first? The answer might not come in words. It might come in silence. And that silence might be the truest version of you. Section 6. The voice in your head isn't you. It's a loop. The inner monologue is a trained performance, not your core self. You hear it now. That voice that just read the last sentence. It speaks in your language. It sounds like your own thoughts. It comments, judges, narrates, worries, replays conversations. You've called it you your whole life, but it's not. According to researchers at Harvard's Mindfulness Center and thinkers like Michael A. Singer, this inner narrator, the voice in your head, is not the real you. It's a loop, a rehearsed script, a pattern of neural activity shaped by years of language, social conditioning, memories, and expectations. It sounds familiar because it has rehearsed your life 1,000,000 times over. But here's the strange truth. The real you, the awareness behind the voice, is silent. Singer describes it like this in The Untethered Soul. Imagine you're watching a stage. The voice in your head is the actor. It performs, distracts, entertains. But you are the one in the audience, quietly watching. You are not the actor, you are the witness. In fact, researchers have found that this default mode network, the system that activates when the mind wanders and talks to itself, is often more active than any sensory input. In other words, the voice in your head is louder than the world itself. And we mistake it for truth. But if you pause truly, pause and listen, you might notice something. A space behind the words. A quietness beneath the thinking. A part of you that simply observes. In mindfulness research, this is known as meta-awareness, the ability to notice the voice without getting pulled into its story. It's the moment you realize that just because your mind says something, I'm not good enough, they don't like me, this will go wrong, doesn't mean it's true. It's just the voice, looping again. And this is where the miracle begins. Once you notice the loop, you're no longer trapped inside it. You're watching it, which means you are not it. This shift from voice to awareness is one of the most powerful awakenings in the human experience. It's what the Stoics called reason, what Buddhists call the watcher, what mystics call the soul. But you don't need any of those labels. Just watch the voice. Listen to it like you'd listen to a radio in the background. Smile at it, even, and then let it fade. There, in the silence that follows, you might meet the real you for the first time. Section 7. You've already dreamt this before. Déjà, Rêvé is real. The future sometimes whispers itself to you. In dreams, you walk into a room. The sound of footsteps, a flicker of sunlight, a stranger turning to speak. And suddenly, your body freezes. You've seen this before. Not in waking life, but in a dream. This haunting sensation has a name: déjà rêvé, already dreamed. Unlike déjà vu, which feels like you've lived something before, déjà rêvé is quieter, more spectral. It's the eerie awareness that you dreamed a moment before it arrived, and it's real. Researchers from Frontiers in Psychology and neuroscientists like Dr. Julia Mossbridge have studied this mysterious phenomenon, and while it remains unexplained, its reports are consistent across cultures and centuries. People dream of things before they happen. A sentence overheard. A room they've never seen. A moment that hasn't occurred yet somehow. Already has. In one study, patients with temporal lobe epilepsy described dreamlike visions that would later play out in real life, sometimes days, sometimes years later. Their brains, it seems, were dipping into something non-linear, something beyond time. Dr. Mossbridge suggests the brain may have access to information from the future, not in a supernatural sense, but as part of a deeper cognitive architecture we don't yet understand. She calls it presentiment, the mind's quiet sensitivity to events that haven't yet arrived. But how could this be? Some philosophers point to the idea that time isn't strictly linear, at least, not in the way we experience it. In dreams, hours can pass in seconds. Entire lifetimes play out before a morning alarm. So maybe, just maybe, dreams aren't bound to the sequence we call now. Maybe they drift through what the mystics once called the astral river, where past, present, and future fold into each other like tides. And when that river touches your sleeping mind, a glimpse slips through, the color of a curtain, the phrase of a stranger, the sound of glass falling. And when it finally happens, your body remembers even if your mind doesn't. So the next time your breath catches in a moment that feels dreamed, don't dismiss it. You may be brushing against the veil, a soft echo of the future that once wandered through your sleeping soul. Section 8. Some people remember past lives with verified details. Children around the world recall lives they never lived, and sometimes the facts match too closely to ignore. You don't remember being anyone else, do you? But imagine this: a 4-year-old child suddenly weeps every night, begging not to be burned again. He says he was once a pilot, a man named James, and his plane went down in flames during a war. He names the aircraft model. He names the aircraft carrier. He even names the friends he flew with. His parents, at first baffled, begin to research, and they find out every name matches. Every detail checks out. There really was a pilot named James who died exactly as the boy described, decades before he was born. And the boy had never seen a war documentary in his life. That's not fiction. That's a real case. And it's only one of over 2,500. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, devoted more than 4 decades to investigating reports like this, especially in children aged 2 to 6 who spoke naturally about previous lives, often with deep emotion, phobias, and memories. What's haunting is how many of these stories came with verifiable, factual details, things the child could not possibly have known through normal means: names, towns, family structures, professions, manner of death. One case involved a boy in India who remembered being a shopkeeper murdered in a neighboring village. He not only described the exact layout of the shop, but also recognized the shopkeeper's family members who confirmed his descriptions, despite never having met the child before. Even the autopsy details of the original death matched the birthmarks on the child's body, an eerie pattern Stevenson documented in many such cases. These weren't vague dreams or fantasies. They were precise, consistent narratives backed up by interviews, documents, and physical evidence. Now, here's the strange part: these memories fade. Almost all children stop recalling these past lives around the age of 7. But during those early years, they speak about their past identities with an urgency, sorrow, or longing that feels startlingly real. Some cry to return home. Some express guilt over actions taken in a life long past. And some come with intense phobias connected to how they believe they died. A child who remembered drowning refused to go near water. A boy who recalled being shot avoided loud noises and war films. One girl in Sri Lanka claimed to have been a man who died in a road accident, and she knew the village, family name, even the man's love of cheap cigarettes. When brought to the man's surviving wife, the girl recognized the entire house. Again, None of these families had ever met. What explains this? No one really knows. And that's the haunting part. Stevenson was careful to avoid religious conclusions. He didn't claim these were proof of reincarnation, only that the evidence was too consistent and specific to dismiss. He compiled these cases into thick clinical reports with photos, interviews, timelines. His goal wasn't to convince, it was to document, to let the mystery speak for itself. In one of his most famous cases, a Burmese boy began speaking fluent Japanese, a language never heard in his household, and claimed to be a World War II soldier who had committed atrocities. The boy's behavior shifted. He marched. He saluted. He wept over things no child should know. Is it possible that trauma carries forward? That identity is not a line but a loop. His successor, Dr. Jim Tucker, continued the work, focusing especially on American cases. In his book, Life Before Life, he recounts the story of Ryan, a young boy who claimed he had been a Hollywood agent in the 1930s. He described old movie sets, studios, actors, and named someone totally unknown to the family. Eventually, with the help of historians, Tucker confirmed the name Marty Martin, a real man who had worked in Hollywood and died decades earlier. Ryan had never been exposed to this man's life, and yet he described details of Marty's house, car, even number of siblings, all later confirmed through public records. So what does this mean? We still don't know, but the research is meticulous. The cases are many, the patterns impossible to ignore. Some call it reincarnation. Others think it may be memory leakage from a collective unconscious. Some believe it's spiritual. Others think it's neurological. But no theory explains it all. What we know is this: there are children, thousands of them, who speak as if their lives did not begin at birth. And when you listen, truly listen, their voices don't sound like imagination. They sound like memory, like homesickness, like grief from a life they no longer live. So tonight, as you close your eyes, ask yourself, what if you've done this before? And what if, somewhere deep in your dreams, you still remember? Section 9. Nothing is truly solid. Everything is empty space. Your body, your room, this entire world, it's all made of almost nothing. You reach out and touch the wooden desk beside your bed. It feels firm, unmoving, smooth and solid against your palm. You shift slightly, press into the mattress, feel the weight of the blanket across your chest. Everything seems real. Everything seems there, but it isn't. What your fingertips are sensing, what your eyes are confirming, what your weight is pushing into is almost entirely nothing. More precisely, over 99.9999% of everything around you is empty space. Even your body, even your bones. This isn't poetic metaphor. This is physics. Every atom, the basic unit of matter that makes up your skin, your hair, your eyes, consists of a dense, tiny nucleus surrounded by a vast cloud of electrons. If the nucleus were the size of a peanut, the nearest electrons would be more than a mile away. In between, nothing. Just empty space. A vacuum so vast that if you removed all the space from the atoms in your body, your entire self could be compressed into a speck smaller than a grain of rice. Now imagine the entire human race, nearly 8 billion people. All of us compressed into the size of a sugar cube. That's how much actual matter there is. Everything else is distance, gaps, space so empty it makes the void between galaxies seem cozy. And yet, you feel so solid. How, because the electrons in your atoms don't like to overlap, as you lie on your bed, what keeps you from falling through it isn't that the atoms of your body are touching the atoms of the bed they never actually touch. What you're feeling is the resistance between electron fields, like invisible forces pushing away from each other. It's the quantum rulebook saying, no closer than this. Solidness, in other words, is a sensation, a perception, not a fact. Even the color you see in objects isn't real in the way you think. That brown desk, its molecules reflect certain wavelengths of light into your eye, and your brain interprets it as brown. But color doesn't exist outside of your nervous system. It's a mental invention to help you navigate the illusion, and sound vibrations in molecules that your eardrums turn into meaning. Touch an electrical conversation between skin and mind. Sight shadows made by light interacting with particles that aren't even really there. The deeper you go, the stranger it becomes. According to quantum field theory, one of the most successful theories in physics, particles themselves are just excitations of invisible fields. They're not even little dots of matter. They're like tiny ripples on an ocean you can't see. A table, a hand, a heartbeat, all just waves in the dark. When Brian Greene, physicist and author of The Elegant Universe, describes reality, he doesn't call it a machine. He calls it a symphony, a vibration, something that exists only because of movement, harmony, and space between notes. Even Einstein knew this. In 1930, he once said, "Physical objects are not in space, but these objects are spatially extended." In this way, the concept empty space loses its meaning. Meaning space isn't where things happen. Space is what things are. So when you lie here, thinking you're grounded in something secure, it's worth remembering that solidity is a feeling. Stability is an illusion. Your hand on your chest is like a galaxy hovering over another galaxy. Close enough to feel, but never quite touching. And somehow, all of this works. Out of almost nothing, you emerge, a conscious being wrapped in borrowed atoms, walking through a world of vibration and probability in space. A breath held by the universe. A moment shaped by stillness. So rest your head now. Let your body melt into the mattress. Know that you're not sinking, you're floating, just slightly above the void. A tiny miracle of structure in an ocean of nothingness. And that, somehow, is more comforting than anything solid. Section 10. Time might flow backward at the quantum level. Cause and effect may not be what they seem. You've always been told that time moves forward. One direction. One arrow. The glass falls. Then it shatters. The candle burns. Then it melts. The breath is taken in. Then let go. But tonight, in the quiet between heartbeats, let's ask something forbidden. What if time flows the other way and you simply haven't noticed? What if, at some secret layer of the universe, effects happen before causes? In 2022, a strange experiment from the Stanford Quantum Group stirred this very question. Using entangled particles, particles mysteriously linked no matter the distance between them, scientists found something eerie. One particle's state seemed to choose its value based on a measurement that hadn't happened yet. Let that settle for a moment. A future event, reaching into the past, to decide what had already occurred. This isn't science fiction. It's quantum mechanics, and it doesn't play by the rules. In some interpretations, like the two-state vector formalism or retrocausality theories, quantum particles don't just carry information forward through time. They carry it both ways. They are informed by the past and the future simultaneously. The wave function, that ghostly equation that governs all quantum systems, becomes a bridge not just from yesterday to today, but from tomorrow to now. Imagine a dream where you drop a stone into a pond, and only afterward do you see your hand reach back to throw it. Imagine hearing a voice, and only minutes later realizing it was your own echo. Imagine feeling a decision in your gut before your mind even formed the thought. At the smallest levels of reality, these reversals may be happening all the time. The journal Physical Review Letters published a set of experiments where quantum systems were manipulated after they'd already been measured, and yet their behavior changed retroactively, as if the present could rewrite the past, or the past could yield to a future that hadn't yet unfolded. How is this possible? Maybe time is not a river, but a loop. Maybe your memories are not left behind, but echo forward. Maybe this very moment lying here, drifting, is shaped not only by the life you've lived, but by the life still waiting for you. Some physicists argue that the entire universe may be time-symmetric, that its deepest laws make no distinction between past and future. Entropy, that beloved law that gives us the illusion of time's arrow, may not apply to the quantum fabric of reality. Down there, in the strange, flickering fog of the subatomic world, everything may be reversible. It's only when you zoom out, when molecules dance and stars burn, that time seems to march forward, relentless. But zoom in, and the march becomes a shimmer, a murmur, a whisper that folds back on itself. You are not stuck in a moment. You are a tangle of timelines, a soft knot of cause and effect braided by things you remember, and things you have not yet dreamed. So perhaps tonight, as you begin to drift, you are not falling asleep at all. Perhaps you are waking up in a memory that your future self has already lived. And somewhere, quietly, the universe nods and rearranges itself around your breath. Section 11. Science still doesn't understand consciousness. You are aware, but no one knows how or why. Close your eyes. Feel your body sinking into the quiet of the room. And now, without opening your eyes, try to answer the simplest mystery of all. Who is noticing this moment? There's breath. There's silence. There's this drifting feeling of self. But what is it that's aware of the breath, the silence, the drifting? That is consciousness. And despite centuries of inquiry, billions in research funding, and the finest minds of philosophy and neuroscience, we still have no idea what it actually is. You are conscious. That much is certain. But where is that consciousness located? Is it in the brain? In the body? Somewhere outside it? Is it a product? Or a presence? Christoph Koch, one of the most influential neuroscientists alive, once said, "Consciousness is the feeling of life itself." But he still admits we don't know how the brain generates it. We know neurons fire. We can map patterns, detect electrical waves, stimulate areas linked to memory or emotion. But we've never found the spark. The moment matter becomes mind. This mystery is called the hard problem of consciousness. Coined by philosopher David Chalmers, it asks, why should physical processes in the brain feel like anything at all? Why isn't the universe just filled with empty mechanisms, moving, clicking, processing, but silent inside? And yet, you feel, Anil Seth, cognitive scientist and dream researcher, suggests that consciousness might be a kind of controlled hallucination, a best guess by the brain constantly predicting, revising, and pretending that what you see, hear, and touch is real. But even he admits we don't know what flips the switch from unconscious processing to experience. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy lists over a dozen competing theories, from integrated information theory to panpsychism, from global workspace models to dualist mysticism, each elegant, each flawed. None of them can fully explain why there is something it is like to be you. You see, consciousness cannot be dissected. It can't be touched, weighed, or photographed. And yet it is the only thing you ever truly know. All else, even the stars, even time you know through consciousness. It is your only window, but it is also the window looking at itself. Is it possible, then, that consciousness isn't in the universe, but that the universe is in it? Some ancient philosophies thought so. The Upanishads whispered that Atman is Brahman, the soul is the world. Buddhist texts describe consciousness as a stream with no beginning. And modern quantum theorists tentatively, awkwardly, have begun asking whether awareness plays a deeper role in how reality crystallizes from possibility into form. Even now, no MRI, no equation, no telescope has caught a glimpse of the one thing most essential to your life, the thing that hears this sentence. Even now, in the quiet. So as you drift tonight, try not to solve the mystery. Just feel its beauty. You are not a machine pretending to be human. You are the warm, flickering light inside the machine asking questions it can't compute. And maybe that's enough. Section 12. You can physically feel someone else's pain, because the boundary between self and other is thinner than it seems. Close your eyes again. Imagine a needle gently piercing someone else's skin. Not yours, theirs. A stranger's hand, perhaps. And yet, you flinch. Your breath catches. You feel it. Why? Your body wasn't touched. No nerves fired in your arm. But somewhere inside you a quiet echo rang out. That echo is empathy, made physical. And behind it lives one of the strangest revelations in neuroscience: mirror neurons. Discovered in the early 1990s in the brain of a monkey. Mirror neurons were first noticed when a lab monkey saw a human reach for a peanut, and the monkey's own brain lit up as if it had reached out itself. Its neurons didn't just observe the action, they mirrored it. Human brains are full of these mirror circuits, and they don't just respond to movement, they respond to emotion, touch, even pain. When you see someone in distress, or joy, or grief, your brain simulates it. It becomes them, in some small way. Dr. Vilayanur Ramachandran, a leading voice in neuroscience, has said mirror neurons could be the neural basis of human empathy, imitation, and even the development of civilization itself. Because if your brain can't tell the full difference between your pain and someone else's, then we're not as separate as we pretend to be. Studies published in the Journal of Neuroscience reveal that when we watch someone being touched, the same regions of our own somatosensory cortex light up as if we were touched ourselves. In other words, you don't just imagine another's experience, you embody it. You become the ghost in their story, feeling with their nerves, hurting with their wounds. And it doesn't stop with pain. The same mechanism allows us to feel the rhythm of music through another dancer, to weep when a character cries in a film, to tighten our breath in response to a friend's fear. Empathy, then, is not metaphor. It is biology. It is circuitry. It is the shared pulse that binds human experience. And yet there is mystery. Why would evolution design brains that blur the boundary between I and you? Wouldn't it be safer, cleaner, more efficient to separate selves? Unless survival was never just about you. Unless your deepest strength lies not in your separateness, but in your ability to merge, to mirror, to momentarily become the other. Tonight, as you drift in this space between waking and sleep, feel the warmth of every heartbeat you've ever loved, every silent sorrow you've carried that wasn't yours, every laugh that made you forget which mouth it came from. They weren't illusions. They were you, reflected through the mirror of another. And maybe, just maybe, that's where your truest self begins. Section 13. The universe may be a simulation and it's serious physics. If reality feels too perfect, maybe that's the glitch. You lie still under the weight of stars. But what if the stars above you aren't stars at all? What if they're pixels, light-encoded data, rendered just for your gaze? What if this entire universe, from your heartbeat to the shape of Saturn's rings, is not a place, but a program? This isn't science fiction. This is physics. In 2003, Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom published a now famous paper asking a strange question. Are you living in a computer simulation? He wasn't joking. Bostrom's argument is mathematical. It goes like this. If advanced civilizations ever develop the capacity to simulate conscious beings, and they run many simulations as we do today in video games and AI experiments, then statistically, there would be far more simulated beings than real ones. Therefore, you're probably one of the simulations. It sounds absurd until you realize how seriously it's being taken. Elon Musk has called the odds of us living in base reality 1 in billions. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the famed astrophysicist, says he wouldn't be surprised at all because the universe behaves mathematically and the rules are suspiciously elegant. And what about MIT? At the MIT Media Lab, researchers like Rizwan Virk have explored the possibility that quantum particles behave like pixels, resolving only when observed, just like a video game, just like a simulation trying to save processing power. Even stranger, the Planck length, the smallest possible unit of space, feels suspiciously like the pixel size of the universe, as if there's a resolution limit to existence. And if you peer into the fabric of space-time, you find it's not continuous, it's granular, as if built on code. Some quantum theorists now ask, are we discovering physics, or are we reverse engineering software? But here's the haunting part. Even if we are in a simulation, does it matter? You still feel pain. You still fall in love. You still look up at the night sky and wonder what it all means. If we are code that dreams, and maybe the simulator, whoever or whatever it is, loves beauty. Why else would sunsets be so exactingly breathtaking? Why else would music hurt so sweetly? So tonight, as your breath slows and your thoughts begin to blur, ask yourself this. If life is a simulation, why does it ache so deeply? And if it isn't, why does it feel so precisely written? Either way, you're here, and something someone wanted you to be. Close your eyes. Let the stars render one by one. The system is still running. And for now, you're inside it. Section 14. The Fibonacci sequence is hidden in all living things. Everything grows like a memory of sacred math. There's a secret number spiraling through your life, through your bones, your breath, the branching of your veins. You don't notice it, but it's always there, a gentle rhythm repeating in nature's design. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The Fibonacci sequence, a numerical whisper that echoes across the universe. It begins with simplicity. Start with 1 and 1, then always add the 2 previous numbers. The result, a spiral of growing beauty. And somehow, nature has memorized it. Look closely. A sunflower arranges its seeds in Fibonacci spirals, 34 curving one way, 55 the other. A pine cone grows its scales in Fibonacci rows. The unfurling of a fern, the pattern of galaxies, the shape of your ear, they all obey this golden rhythm. Even your DNA helix, the very code of your being, twists in ratios guided by the Fibonacci series. It's not just coincidence. It's geometry. It's biology. It's sacred. Mathematicians have long been puzzled. Why would life chaotic, messy, full of random mutations adhere so perfectly to a pattern of numbers? In The Golden Ratio, astrophysicist Mario Livio explores this mystery. He notes that the Fibonacci sequence and its cousin, the Golden Ratio 1.618, are not just mathematical curiosities, they're efficiencies nature leans on. They help leaves capture sunlight, shells grow without wasting material, and cells divide in balanced spirals. But beyond function is form. And form, in nature, is often beauty, unreasonably consistent, unexplainably perfect. Some cultures have called this ratio divine, the signature of the Creator, etched into the fabric of growth itself, as if every petal, every spiral, every living thing is not just built, but remembered following ancient rules written in light. Tonight, as your mind softens and your body fades into the pillow, imagine yourself as one of those spirals unfolding, growing, returning. You are not random. You are a pattern, a curve carved by time, memory, and golden math. Close your eyes now. Feel the spiral carry you inward. Everything you are, everything you love, is growing in perfect order, even in the dark. Section 15. Your gut has its own brain and it feels emotions. The soft intelligence beneath your ribs listens, remembers, and aches. There's a mind in your belly, not a metaphor, not a hunch, a literal, living second brain winding quietly through your intestines like a thinking river. Scientists call it the enteric nervous system, a network of over 100 million neurons, more than a cat's spinal cord. It doesn't help you do math. It doesn't write poetry, but it feels, it decides, and sometimes it even acts before your head catches on. Dr. Michael Gershon, a pioneer in neurogastroenterology, named it plainly the second brain. This gut brain doesn't ask permission. It regulates digestion, secretes neurotransmitters like serotonin, the same chemical that lifts or crashes your mood. In fact, 95% of the body's serotonin is made not in your skull, but in your gut. Ever wonder why heartbreak makes you nauseous? Why fear tightens your stomach before it reaches your thoughts? Because your gut feels first. Your belly listens like a soft drum, echoing the tremors of every memory, every grief, every joy. The ancient Greeks believed the soul resided in the gut. In Japanese, hara means belly, but also center, courage, essence. And in English, we still say I had a gut feeling. There's truth there. Your gut is not a servant to your brain, it's a partner, a co-pilot, maybe even an older sibling. When Johns Hopkins researchers explored the gut-brain axis, they found something even stranger: emotional trauma, early in life, often leaves its deepest traces not in memory, but in digestion. The gut remembers what your mind forgets. So tonight, before sleep carries you off, place a hand on your belly. Feel its warmth, its quiet rhythm. It's not just processing dinner, it's processing your day, your mood, your memories, your unspoken feelings. Let it relax. Let it breathe with you. Let it tell you what it knows, in that language without words, that wisdom coiled in muscle and motion. You are more than your thoughts. You are a whole symmetry of sensing. A head, yes, but also a listening gut, a breathing chest, a feeling skin. And your second brain is already dreaming for you. Section 16. People can share the same dream. Documented cases exist. Two sleepers, one dream, as if the soul forgot it was alone. You close your eyes, and so does someone else. Different rooms, different bodies. Same dream, not just metaphor, but memory. From twins who dream the same fire on the same night, to lovers who meet in dreams they never told each other about, to strangers who wake and describe identical skies. Across time and culture, something strange has flickered. Shared dreams. Psychology once dismissed them as coincidence, but folklore never did. And now, neither do parts of science. In the academic journal Dreaming, and across JSTOR's archives, you'll find cases labeled mutual dreams, telepathic dreams, crisis dreams, dreams where one twin feels the other's accident, where a mother wakes seconds before her child's distress, where two people asleep continents apart awaken remembering the same desert, the same voice, the same moon. Lucid dream researchers have pushed further. Could trained dreamers enter the same space, a shared dreamscape, a kind of subconscious rendezvous? Some experiments say yes. The data is scarce, but the chills it leaves behind are real. Aboriginal Australians tell of dream time, a plane more real than waking, where ancestors and living people both wander. In Tibetan sleep yoga, adepts report meetings in the bardo dreams, places between death and birth, shared not just by the living, but the dead. A whisper passes through cultures like a wind between trees. You are never alone in the dream. You may have felt it once, someone beside you in sleep, not in body, but in presence. A voice in your dream that wasn't yours. An image you later found in someone else's journal. What if dreaming is not a locked room, but a cathedral with many doors? What if some dreams don't come from inside you, but between us? Tonight, when you drift off, listen for echoes that don't feel like yours. Look for symbols that carry another's breath. And if you find yourself walking with someone, ask them their name. Then see if you remember it together. Because maybe, just maybe, you're both still dreaming it. Section 17. You've already forgotten 99% of what you know. The soft architecture of forgetting how silence becomes you. At this very moment, you are surrounded by shadows, not outside, but within. They linger like the soft scent of rain that once fell, or the voice of someone you loved. now carried off by time. Shadows of thoughts, of sights, of feelings. You are made not only of memory, but of forgetting. Because here's the quiet truth, your brain is a master of disappearance. Even now, as you listen to these words, your mind is deciding what to keep and what to gently erase. From the moment you were born, no. Before that, your brain has been sculpting itself through forgetting. You once knew how to float in liquid. You once spoke the language of a heartbeat, a drum beat shared with the womb. And then you forgot, because forgetting is not failure. It is design. Rodrigo Quian Quiroga, in his remarkable book, The Forgetting Machine, explains something unsettling and oddly beautiful. Your brain filters almost all of reality out. Only a fraction remains. Most of what you've seen, heard, or touched today is already dissolving, already gone. Your life, it turns out, is mostly made of things you'll never recall. And yet, somehow, you remain whole. Imagine it walking through a garden of endless impressions, millions each day. The rustle of a leaf, the number on a passing bus, the exact grain of wood on a desk. Do you remember? Could you know? Because your mind is not a vault. It is a garden that constantly prunes itself. This is not carelessness. It is wisdom. There is something called the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, an old but enduring model first proposed in the 1800s. It shows that without reinforcement, we forget 50% of new information within 1 hour. By the end of a day, 70% is gone. By the end of a week, 90% vanished like footprints on wet sand. But still, you go on. You learn. You feel. You grow. You remember enough to live. And that is enough. This is where it gets stranger. What you do remember, even that is a dream in motion. Each time you recall something, your brain reconstructs it from fragments. Reassembly, not playback. Your memories are not photographs. They are paintings, revised by your current self, the child who once feared the dark. You remember their thoughts with the wisdom of hindsight, the heartbreak that tore you apart. You now see it as growth. Every memory you have is edited, gently and invisibly, by the person you are now becoming, which means there is no fixed self, just echoes. Echoes that shift as you walk through life. And if that sounds a little scary, breathe. It also means you are free. You are not trapped by your past, not bound by every scar or misstep. Your forgetting is a form of mercy. There's more. PubMed studies show that forgetting isn't simply about losing information. It's an active neurological process. Specialized cells like glial cells prune neural connections the way a gardener trims branches. If you don't revisit a memory, its pathway weakens, and in time, vanishes. But the pruning makes room for new stories, new growth, new dreams. Some neuroscientists believe that forgetting is essential for creativity, that it's what allows the brain to think in metaphors, to leap across concepts, to invent. Imagine trying to paint with every color at once. It would become gray. The brain chooses a palette. It leaves blank space. And that blankness is where poetry lives. Consider this. You don't remember every step you took yesterday, but you remember how the breeze felt on your skin. You don't remember every word in that book, but you remember the feeling it gave you. Emotional memories last longer. Why? Because the brain is not a historian. It is a curator of meaning. The hippocampus stores facts, but the amygdala decides which facts are emotionally important. Together, they shape you, not as a perfect archive, but as a story stitched from sensations and symbols. So many cultures knew this. The ancient Egyptians believed the soul had to pass through a hall of judgment, but not for what you remembered, for the weight of your heart, the lightness of your being. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a practice called Bardo Thodol, the Book of the Dead, which describes how consciousness drifts after death, slowly forgetting the world it once knew, letting go, layer by layer. Even in Catholic mysticism, purgatory is imagined not only as punishment, but purification, forgetting the sins and griefs of earth, forgetting the hunger of ego, becoming light enough to rise. It is not just science that tells us forgetting is sacred. It is myth. It is prayer. And in your life, you've lived this forgetting 1,000 times. Do you remember the first friend you ever made? What their laugh sounded like? How it felt to hold their hand? Do you remember the face of someone you passed on the street 5 years ago, who maybe smiled at you with a kindness you desperately needed? You don't. And yet, perhaps, somewhere, your soul does. The forgotten lives in you, in dreams. Sometimes, you see faces you don't recognize, but your brain is not creating new faces. It's borrowing from memory. Old neighbors, cashiers, crowds you passed once in a train station, all stored somewhere, sleeping inside you. And what of names? You've forgotten most of the names you've ever heard. Names you once whispered in secret. Names you cried. Names you envied. Names you loved. They're gone now, but the feeling remains. That's the paradox forgetting shapes memory. You do not remember every lesson, but you remember who taught you. Not every rule, but the fear of breaking them. Not every goodbye, but the ache it left behind. You are stitched together by what you've let go. And sometimes, the forgetting hurts. You walk into a room and can't remember why. You see someone familiar but can't place them. You search your thoughts for a name, a fact, a phrase, and it hovers, just out of reach. A phantom in the mist. But this too is part of the dream. The Japanese have a word mono no aware the gentle sadness of impermanence, of watching a cherry blossom fall, knowing it won't bloom again, and loving it more because of that. Your memory is a cherry blossom, and forgetting is the breeze. So tonight, as your head sinks into the pillow, as your breathing slows and your thoughts scatter, know this: you were never meant to hold everything. Your forgetting is not a flaw. It is a kindness, a shaping, a quiet permission to move forward. The faces you don't remember, they're still with you. The stories you've lost, they've become your rhythm. The knowledge you forgot, it made room for wonder. So let go now. Let your mind fall gently into the soft velvet of sleep. Let the forgotten bless you not as absence but as space, the space in which your soul can dream. And tomorrow, you'll remember only what matters, and that will be enough. Section 18. The Bible, Vedas, and Sumerian myths share the same sky symbols. Ancient cultures, separated by oceans, described identical cosmic beings and patterns. You lie there, warm beneath your blanket, and somewhere above you, stars wait to speak. Not the burning balls of hydrogen your teachers once described, but the old stars, the symbolic stars, the stars that spoke in metaphor, long before telescopes, long before ink. You blink slowly, and for a moment, It feels like you're hovering not in your room, but in a library carved from the night sky. And you begin to remember something, not a fact, not a name, but a pattern. A lion with wings, a bull with a crown, a serpent coiled in circles, eating its tail. Across Babylon and Egypt, in the chants of the Vedas and the earliest whispers of Genesis, humans wrote of beings from the sky, not aliens, not angels but symbols, embedded in constellations. They gave them names: Enki, Vishnu, Yahweh, Orion, Pleiades, Rahu, Leviathan. And yet, separated by thousands of miles, somehow, they told the same stories. You ask yourself how did the Sumerians, cradled between the Tigris and Euphrates, dream the same celestial beasts as the Vedic seers chanting in the Himalayan foothills? Why did the Hebrew firmament include a firm dome over the earth, just like the Norse held the sky aloft with the skull of Ymir? How did the Mayans trace the same serpent in the sky, the Milky Way, as the Aboriginal Dreamtime? Were these civilizations secretly connected? Or was something more ancient guiding them? You inhale, slowly. The stars feel older now, not objects, but archetypes. In Hamlet's Mill, a quiet but seismic book, the scholars Giorgio de Santillana and Herta von Dechend suggest a radical idea that myth was astronomy, that ancient myths, from gods with spears to angels with wheels, were actually stories encoding celestial knowledge. That precession, equinoxes, and the slow wobble of the earth were written not in equations, but in epic tales. In that view, the Bible's cherubim, lion, eagle, bull, and man are not just spiritual beings. They're fixed constellations: Leo, Aquila, Taurus, and Aquarius, markers in the sky, helping humans remember where they are in the cosmic clock. It's as if the heavens left us a memory and our ancestors translated it into poetry, firelight, and stone. You picture a priest in Sumer, 4,000 years ago, whispering a hymn under the full moon. He speaks of Enlil and Ninhursag. He chants of kingship descending from heaven. He's not inventing gods. He's charting celestial cycles, preserving memory in mythical time. And on the other side of the world, a Vedic rishi chants the Rig Veda, calling to Varuna, the upholder of cosmic order, riding a chariot across the sky. Another metaphor for the heavens, another echo of the same language symbol. What's haunting is not just the overlap in symbols, it's the precise similarity of sequence. In many ancient systems, a flood resets the earth, a god descends, a serpent tempts, a golden age fades into iron, and through it all, stars move, and time turns. You wonder if the ancients knew something we've forgotten, or perhaps remembered something we no longer can. That the sky wasn't just up, it was within. That the mind could mirror the stars, the soul could rotate with Saturn, and the memory of the cosmos was somehow stored in bone and blood. You lie still, and for a moment, the ceiling above you disappears, replaced by a zodiac older than astrology. Taurus stares from the east. Orion lifts his arm, and the same beasts from the Bible, from the Mahabharata, from Sumerian cylinder seals, stare back. Were they ever meant to be gods? Or were they symbols, living metaphors, born from humanity's attempt to make sense of an overwhelming sky? The Internet's sacred text archive holds fragments from every culture, and when you place them side by side, a whisper emerges, a celestial murmur that says, "You've seen this before. You've named it differently, but it's the same. You are not the first to dream of the lion with wings. And in that whisper is a strange kind of comfort. Because if ancient cultures all saw the same symbols, maybe we are not as fragmented as we think. Maybe there's a kind of deep memory passed not through speech, but starlight. Not through language, but imagination. A kind of ancestral constellation that still flickers in your dreams, encoded not in books, but in stories, myths, and lullabies. And maybe, just maybe, when you fall asleep tonight, you'll remember one. Not by name, not by logic, but by symbol. The shape of the serpent, the crown of the bull, the dance of the twins, the lion leaping backward through time, and you looking up, still wondering, still remembering, still part of the sky. Section 19. Some atoms in your body are older than the sun. You were born from stars that died before our sun was born. Close your eyes now and picture a sky before our sky, a time before time, when there was no earth, no moonlight to whisper over oceans, no solar warmth to cradle life, only stars ancient, immense roaring in silence, collapsing in beauty. You are made of those stars, the carbon in your lungs, the oxygen cradled in every breath, the iron that colors your blood with dusk. These are not Earth's gifts. They are hand-me-downs from galaxies long gone, long before the sun flickered its first breath. Other stars lived and died quietly, sculpting the elements that would one day breathe as you. Your atoms, yes. Yours are the echoes of ancient supernovae, some over 7 billion years old, older than the Earth, older than the sun, older than any story you've ever been told. When massive stars die, they explode in something called a supernova, a cosmic storm so bright it can outshine an entire galaxy for a brief breath in eternity. In that moment, in that silence so vast it shakes, physics elements are born. Not just hydrogen or helium, but the heavy, life-bearing ones. Carbon, nitrogen, iron, and more. Each a cosmic puzzle piece waiting for skin, memory, and dreams. Carl Sagan once said we are made of star stuff, but he didn't mean it poetically. He meant it quite literally. According to NASA's astrophysics division, the atoms in your body not metaphor, but matter were born in the furnaces of ancient stars and carried across the black tides of space by wind and gravity, long before the sun even existed. You are, in that way, a museum of explosions, a living archive of cosmic dust. Let that sink in. You are walking around with pieces of dead stars inside you. The iron in your blood may come from a supernova 10 galaxies away. The calcium in your bones may have traveled light years before resting quietly inside your spine. And it's not just you. The trees, the oceans, the cat sleeping nearby, the paper on which ancient poems were penned, all born from the same celestial debris. Even more curious is that some atoms in your body come from different stars than others. You are a mosaic, a breathing constellation, a galactic remix that took billions of years to compose, and you never even noticed. It means that the particles that make up your mind, the very ones thinking this thought right now, once belonged to stars that exploded so long ago. Their light hasn't even finished crossing the universe. It also means that if the universe were a song, you're not the audience. You're a verse. Astrophysicists at NASA tell us this process called stellar nucleosynthesis is responsible for creating most of the known elements heavier than helium, and it happens only in death. The most important ingredients for life are forged not in peace, but in collapse. Isn't that beautiful? That maybe it takes a star's death to create a soul. The Vedas speak of Agni, the sacred fire from which life is born and returns. The Bible whispers, "From dust you came." And the Sumerians wrote of a sky god whose tears of light birthed the flesh of humankind. Maybe they all remembered. Maybe they were trying to tell us something that science only now confirms. You don't come from here. You came through here. You were never just a person. You are the aftermath of stars dreaming themselves into life. And so when you lie down and feel small beneath the stars, remember, you are not beneath them. You are one of them. Remembering yourself. Now, take a slow breath. Let the universe settle behind your eyes. The stars aren't watching you tonight. They are watching through you. Shh. Let the sky fall quiet again and drift. Starlight. Drift. Section 20. The universe is expanding faster than it should be, and no one knows why. Something invisible is pulling reality apart, and no one knows what it is. You open your eyes in a dream, but the stars are running away, not slowly, not lazily drifting like petals on a pond. They are fleeing, accelerating, as if something unseen, something enormous and cold were pulling the fabric of space apart. It's not just poetic, it's scientific, and it's terrifying in the gentlest possible way. In 2011, the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded not for discovering a new galaxy or a beautiful equation, but for discovering a question. A team of astronomers from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics and others around the world had been carefully measuring the light from exploding stars type Ia supernovae, brilliant cosmic lighthouses that blink at regular brightnesses. They thought they were tracking how the universe had been slowing down since the Big Bang. Gravity, after all, should pull everything back in, shouldn't it? But they were wrong. These supernovae weren't slowing down. They were farther than they should have been, which meant the universe wasn't slowing down at all. It was speeding up. Imagine lighting a candle, throwing it across the ocean, and watching it accelerate faster, and faster, and faster with nothing touching it. No wind pushing, no hands pulling. That's what our galaxies are doing. They're not just moving apart, they're being yanked apart by something we cannot see, and no one knows what it is. Scientists now call this force dark energy, but that's just another way of saying we have no idea. It makes up over 68% of the known universe, and yet we don't know if it's a substance, a field, a flaw in our math, or a whisper from another dimension. We just know this. The farther away a galaxy is from you, the faster it is retreating. It's not motion through space. It's space itself stretching, like a balloon blowing itself up, like a dream expanding from the inside out. And here you are, a tiny being, floating on a pale rock in a universe that refuses to slow down. Some astrophysicists believe we may need new physics entirely. Einstein's elegant equations, so beautiful, so reliable, may be incomplete. Others whisper about quintessence, a shifting energy that pulses through space-time. Some even wonder, could it be the influence of other universes, brushing up against ours like ghost ships in fog? But the truth is, we don't know. And that's the most honest answer the cosmos has given us in a long time. Harvard physicists called it the most profound mystery in cosmology. Because it doesn't just break the rules, it rewrites the game. You, dear listener, are sitting in a universe being gently torn apart by an invisible hand, and no one knows where it's leading. It might slow down someday. It might rip apart every atom. Or maybe, just maybe, it's pulling us toward a truth too vast for mathematics. A horizon of meaning hidden inside expansion itself. So as you drift into rest tonight, feel it, that soft pull outward, endless, like breath leaving the lungs of time. You are not being left behind. You are expanding, too. You are part of the question. And someday, somewhere, maybe you'll be part of the answer. Now breathe. Let the galaxies go. Let the silence stretch like velvet. And sleep, little cosmos. Sleep.